Good morning, friends. This is Saraswati KB, Assistant Professor, Government First Aid College, Tiptur. In this session of the video, let us understand the poem Anthem for Doomed Youth, stanza-wise. The poem is one of Owen's most critically acclaimed. It is structured as a Petrarchan sonnet with a Shakespearean rhyme scheme and is an elegy or lament for the dead. The rhyme scheme is irregular with AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, FE and GG pattern. Owen's meter is mostly iambic pentameter, and the meter reinforces the juxtapositions in the poem and the sense of instability caused by war and death. The poem owes its more mature imagery and message to another World War I poet, Siegfried Sassoon, who was older and more cynical than Wilfred Owen. Their meeting was a significant turning point for Owen. Anthem for Doomed Youth is a poem about soldiers who died in the World War. It was estimated that the World War killed around 17 million people worldwide. When Wilfred was recovering from the trauma of the battle, he understood that war is hellish and futile waste of human life. The poem is a protest, subverting the usual use of anthem as a symbol of nationalism into an anti-war message. Dear students, please have the poem with you while listening to this video so that you can understand it better. Let me read the poem. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any voice of mourning save the chores, the shrill, demented chores of wailing shells and bugles calling for them from sad shires. The poem begins with a rhetorical question. What church bells will ring for the young man slaughtered like farm animals? Instead, these young men just hear the fearsome rage of firing guns. The only prayers they get are the quick and jarring rhythms of rifle fire. These men will have no appropriate rituals in their names, whether prayers or bell ringing. No voice will mourn them except the chores, the high-pitched and hellish noises of falling artillery. Bugles will call for the young man from sad hometowns and villages. This is the explanation of first stanza. Okay, let us come to the analysis. The speaker says there are no bells for those who die like cattle. All they get is the monstrous anger of the guns. They have only the ragged sound of the rifle as their prayers. They get no mockeries, no bells, no mourning voices except for the chore of crazed wailing shells and the sad bugles calling from their home countries. Thus, Owen begins with a bitter tone as he asks rhetorically, what passing bells of mourning will sound for these soldiers who die like cattle in an undignified mass? The soldiers are compared to cattle. Like farmed animals, they are brought up only to grow big enough for their own slavery. They are not granted the rituals and rights of good Christian civilians back home. They do not get real prayers, only rifle fire. Their only choir are of shells and bugles. This first set of imagery is violent, featuring weapons and harsh noises of war. It is set in contrast to images of the church. Owen is suggesting organized religion cannot offer much consolation to those dying on the front. These religious images, which are symbol of the sanctity of life, suggest inadequacy, futility, even meaninglessness of organized religion against such a cataclysm as war. To patter out is to intone mindlessly, it is an irrelevance. Hasty orisons are an irreverence. Prayers, bells are just mockeries. The poem makes no attempt to paint war as heroic or noble. Heroism and nobility are rendered practically irrelevant by the sheer brutality of the conflict. Instead of populating the poem with examples of bravery, the poem is full of daily realities of battle. There are guns, the relentless fire of rifles, wailing shells falling overhead. All of these are portrayed as hellish and terrifying. The gun's fire is monstrous and it fires in monstrous anger, and the shells scream like shrill, demented chores. In other words, they take on the emotions that represents the worst of humanity. Fury and violent madness, the very things that cause war. This is in brief the line by line explanation and an analysis of the first stanza. Now, let us come to the second stanza. I'll read the poem for you. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes, shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. Okay, these are the lines of the poem. Now let me explain these lines. What candles can be lit to help the dying soldiers in their passage from life to death? Instead of young boys holding these faint lights, the soldiers' eyes will show the fading light of life as they say their goodbyes to the world. Instead of drapes over their coffins, the soldiers will be remembered by the grief-stricken faces of women and girls. Instead of flowers, perhaps the dead will be honored by peace and diplomacy, by more patience in the world. The end of every day will also be a kind of ritual, as those who live on after the war draw down their window blinds. In the second stanza, the poem slows down and becomes more dolorous, less enraged. The poet muses that the young men will not have candles. The only light they will get will be the reflections in their fellow soldiers' eyes. They must have substitutions for their coffin covers, their flowers, and their slow dusk. The poem has a note of finality, of lingering sadness, and an inability to avoid the reality of death and grief. In this stanza, the image of the choice is important. War is often presented along nationalistic lines, And young men are encouraged to fight for the account of the nation with a sense of patriotism. But the members of the choir do not sing the national anthem, they sing a bloody banshee like cry of war. These men, fed to the war like nameless cattle, will never return home anyway. The bugles will call for them from sad shires, but this call will forever be unanswered. From start to finish, the poem foregrounds the wastefulness of war. The reader gets a sense of the way war hollows out society, particularly in its relentless destruction of young men. Men are disposable, as the poem suggests, their deaths merely part of the price of war. Notice how, in the poem's very first line, these men are compared to cattle. These men are like framed animals brought into life only to grow big enough for their own slaughter. Furthermore, the poem makes no attempt to glorify war or paint these men as heroic or noble. It doesn't say that they are not these things, but instead makes the case that these traits, that is, heroism and nobility, are rendered practically irrelevant by the sheer brutality of the conflict. Thus, the poem is full of the daily realities of battle. There are guns, relentless fire of rifles, and wailing shells falling overhead. The poem makes the point that these men will never return home anyway. Their actual national anthem is no longer relevant. The poem, in the second stanza, describes more fitting forms of tribute. Instead of the weak light of remembrance candles, for example, the speaker suggests honoring the holy glimmers of goodbyes in the soldiers' eyes, that is, the dying light of life in their eyes as they realize that their time is up. Then, the speaker goes on to mention the pallor of girls' brows, the tenderness of patient minds, and the drawing down of blinds each day. Each of these, the speaker suggests, is a more honest form of tribute. The first example describes how, rather than having their coffins draped with flags, the young men will be remembered better by the grief-stricken faces of their loved ones, particularly the girls who may be their sisters, wives, or girlfriends. Then the tenderness of patient minds suggests that the best tribute that could be made to the dead is the calmness, patience, and understanding that could prevent war from ever happening again. Finally, the drawing down of blinds is in part an image of the darkness of death, but it is also a more literal sign of the continuation of everyday life. Blinds are drawn, people go to sleep, and they wake up the next day to go on living. The image suggests that the simple existence of an everyday life would be the more authentic tribute to the dead soldiers, because it means that others are enjoying the peace for which the war was fought. In summary, Anthem for Doomed Youth criticizes the usual forms of ritual and tribute used to commemorate people who have died in war. It is not saying that these rituals don't have their place, but rather that they are not enough in the face of war's horrors. In the second stanza, the poem presents memory, kindness, and gratitude as more fitting memorials. Furthermore, the church and the government are big parts of why these men went off to die in the first place. The soldiers were asked to defend their country and its Christian values. Some of the themes of the poem which we can analyze are like this. The poem discusses or throw light on the loss of innocence. Owen, a young soldier himself, was very aware of the naivety evinced by many of the soldiers who enlisted. They were not prepared for what they would experience, and they hardly knew how to grapple with the carnage and absurdity of war. These boys were turned into men far earlier than they should have been. Owen captures this tragedy of war, the march of old men sending young men off to kill and die. That is the theme of this poem, Loss of Innocence. The other theme we can notice in this poem is brotherhood and friendship. Several of Owen's poems depict the deep bonds of friendship and understanding that develop between soldiers. Shorn of their familial connections, these young men have only each other to rely on. This brotherly love is even more powerful than erotic love, Owen suggests. Friendship is one of the few things these soldiers have to live for. The next theme discussed in this poem is the horrors of war. Owen does not shy away from depicting the horrors of war. He makes his readers confront the atrocities on the battlefield and the indignities of life back home. He presents readers with soldiers who have lost their limbs and have been victims of poison gas, young men mourning their dead comrades, a ghastly battlefield dreamscapes, and nature's wrath. He shows how the war affects the young man who fight both physically and psychologically. The men who survive become inured to brutality. There is little to no glory and heroism, just scarred and desensitized young men fighting for a cause they do not quite understand. The other theme which we can look to in this poem is disillusionment with religion. Owen was certainly a Christian, but he expressed profound disillusionment with organized religion in his letters and poems. He disliked the close connection between church and state and how the church was complicit in stoking the fires of war. He saw the rituals of the church as being cold comfort to the boys on the battlefield or the people who loved them back at home. Churches and statues of saints lost their potency amidst the incomprehensible atrocities of war. The next theme which we can look in this poem is the irrationality of war. Throughout Owen's poems, the theme of irrationality of war is woven. The soldiers do not seem to know what they are fighting for, possessing no lofty goals and expressing no sentiment regarding why they are there. The battles depicted in the poems are unconnected to each other, existing in a vacuum with seemingly no larger purpose. The horrors of war are not explained away or justified by a noble cause. The last theme which we can look at in this poem is emotion and feeling. Owen is very sympathetic to the ways in which soldiers attempted to make sense of their peculiar and terrible situation on the front and back at home. He understands that many want to deaden and dull themselves to their thoughts and feelings in order to stave off the anguish over what they have done and seen. They are drained of vitality, able to laugh in the face of death. Owen wrestles with his thoughts on this, for while he understands this psychological response, he does not necessarily think excising all emotion is good, for it severs one's connection to humanity. Dear students, this is in brief the summary and analysis of the poem Anthem for Doomed Youth, written by Wilfred Owen. Thank you for watching this video.